Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this version of, or this edition, I guess, of the Digital Roadshow. We're going to advance the slide. Today's webinar is titled The Most Common Mistakes Big Brands Make with SEO. And there's the title slide that says that. Today's presenters are myself, Lisa Weir. I'm the CEO of Oneupweb. And with me, I have Dave Castle, our Director of Client Strategy.
Good afternoon.
Dave's been with Oneupweb for, 9 years now?
Yep, 9 years.
Doing a variety of things, but primarily heading up our SEO team. So today, the most common mistakes big brands make with SEO, we're going to make this a relatively short presentation from Dave and I, because I know there are lots of questions. We've already had several submitted that we're going to be including, and we'll get right into this. So number one, Dave.
Not properly preparing for design changes. This one kind of goes without saying, but if you don't prepare for it, it's not going to go well. We've had this occur a number of times. We've had clients come to us that have recently gone through updates, have updated the site, and they've lost everything.
Or are in the process of it. So if you're going to redesign your website or a substantial portion of it, the message is...
think it through. Include everybody necessary with this. Not preparing properly could be anything from, if you have multiple teams, you probably have a creative team, you have an IT team, you have your SEO team. Make sure that they're all involved throughout the entire process.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to forget about external teams. So, for instance, if you're working with an agency of any sort, even if it's a separate pay-per-click agency, for sure, because you can have misguided landing pages or URLs.
Yeah, if your URLs change, it's an error page, not the best user experience. We have lived this in the past. The other mistake, too, that we ought to point out is budgeting for time and money. Yeah, time and money, both. I mean, if you have 3-month launch period and say, okay, creative is going to take 8 weeks to do this, to build out the design, 2 weeks to create the shells, and then IT, you've got a week and a half to do this. That's usually not going to go well, because at that point, your IT team and SEO team are trying to do everything in a week and a half. It never goes well. We've experienced this, like Lisa said, many times with clients, and usually the date gets pushed back, or a product that isn't complete goes out.
So what's the ideal scenario, Dave? I mean, if you are contemplating a redesign, and most companies, large or small, are going to go through a redesign periodically. So the first step is you're handling this internally. You're coming up with a new look and feel, brand strategy, whatever those things are. But the earlier you bring in your SEO team, the better.
Definitely. You don't want to wait until the end. If you have everything fleshed out, you create your design, you do everything, have your mock-ups, and then go to them and say, here's what we want to do, and find out, oh yeah, this is not SEO friendly at all. Then what do you do?
It could be a navigation structure. It could be a fact that you're moving to a new content management system. All of your page URLs are going to change, etc. So that can be a pretty big deal. Number 2, relying on branded search or ignoring natural search altogether.
Please don't ever do that. One thing, relying on branded search, if you're relying on that, that's the audience you already have. I mean, you're not introducing yourself to a new audience. You're just basically converting your existing customers.
Now this doesn't necessarily, this is a separate issue aside from redesign. So if by relying on a branded search or ignoring natural search altogether, what we're talking about is, let's say you've got an established website, but you don't find that, or you don't feel as though SEO is important because you're a Nike or you're a Pepsi, and so people are just going to type in your branded term into a search query and find your site. That's true. But you may want to appear for other terms such as, athletic running shoes or...
Well, searchers are getting so much smarter. It's no longer a matter of people just putting in one-word search terms. If you look over time how it's progressed, 2, 3, 4-word terms are now what people are using.
Well, so here's an example. Here's a test. What's the first brand that comes to mind when you see this image? What's your...
New Balance.
New Balance?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm thinking of Nike, but would you have thought that ASICS was going to be represented first on the list? Chances are they're not a top of mind brand for you. So where's Nike and where is New Balance?
I don't see them anywhere.
They might be there, but the print's too small. My eyes are too bad.
Zappos about.com. Yeah, they're not up there.
So that's the point. The web has leveled the playing field for brands. So you could be a non-player. I'm not implying that ASICS isn't, but let's just say that you are a new running shoe. You can compete equally as well with Nike for long-tail terms. And so you're going to take a portion or a part of the market share away from Nike in search.
Yeah, and like you said, when I said New Balance, you kind of looked at me like I was crazy. The reason is I bought a pair of New Balance, I love them, and they've converted me to brand.
Right.
So if you're up there for the new ones, you could, you're talking about branded search, that could become branded search later on.
Absolutely. The overall message is, though, just don't rely on your brand as your only search term. You really need to consider how people search and other factors as well.
Definitely.
So here are some brands that may not need to worry so much, but my point is still that if you're a Xerox, you still want to show up for copy machines or other office type equipment that they make.
Yeah, and you're talking about running shoes again. When you say that, what do you say? I need a pair of running shoes. You don't necessarily say I need a pair of Nikes. So yeah, it's a big brand name, but they don't have that great of brand recognition.
Well, if you're really brand loyal.
Oh, I got it.
Okay. So the third point, utilizing content management systems that aren't search engine friendly.
Yeah, the little, oh boy, that's bad, doesn't really cover that, I don't think.
Well, it's much the same problem as if you're going through a redesign. But once you've chosen a content management system and you're porting your content over, it can be too late, particularly if it's not suitable or friendly to search engines.
Well, for what you're doing, you need to consider what your site is going to do.
So what are some of the common problems with content management systems?
Well, things you need to make sure they do. Can you put title tags in there? Some of them by default just it'll grab, if it's a post, it'll grab the post. If it's a headline, it'll grab the headline and put that into the title tag. Do you have the ability to change that? Because that's not always necessarily the most optimized title you could have.
And per page, too. Because we've experienced that where one title tag becomes the title tag for all pages in the site.
Or for like a section. So you'll
Right.
have 50, 60 pages with the exact same title tag.
Right.
Yeah, static customizable URLs. Out of the box, it's really hard to find a content management system that will make those. There's usually a lot of rewriting, a lot of rules that need to go into place to do this. So making sure that you know what your content management system can and can't do beforehand is huge. Meta tag customization, again, talking about title tags, we said you may have a default that goes into every page of the site or for a section. You want to make sure that you can make these as customizable as possible. Description tag. It doesn't play the role it nearly did once in positioning, but what it does, it's a way to connect with your users. It's usually what shows up underneath your title in a listing.
It's the message that you want people to see and compel them to click.
So if you just have one default one, that's not necessarily going to be that compelling. Talking about anchor text control. Some of them by default won't let you update what anchor text you use.
Let's explain real quick for those that may not understand exactly what anchor text is. What is it?
Anchor text would be the click here. It's the links within the content on a site or within navigation.
So it could be keyword phrases that are your anchor text.
Yep, it could be. But again, some of them will not let you do that. It's just the default. So making sure you can actually alter your anchor text to use your keywords. Now, the next one, pagination control.
That sounds...
Yeah, it sounds horrible, but that's for, if you have an e-commerce site that has next, back, previous, page 1, 2, 3, things like that. What can happen with this is you can actually create duplicate pages when you click from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. So duplicate content, that's been an issue forever.
Yeah, it's what we refer to, or you may have heard of, called canonicalization. That's a mouthful of a word. But essentially it means numerous ways to navigate to the same page.
Yep.
And so a search engine gets really confused if there are, and they'll start omitting pages from your site if there are more than one way to get to a particular page of content.
Right. And which one it's going to be is kind of up to them.
And sometimes it's none.
Sometimes it's none. All right. Redirect functionality. Lisa brought up earlier talking about going through a redesign, changing URL structure, things like that. How you redirect those pages is critical. If your content management system won't let you redirect those, and you have thousands of 404 error pages out there, that's a horrible user experience. Not only that, internal linking, external linking, anything pointing to those old pages, you're losing the relevancy of those pages if you can't redirect them to the new ones.
It could be good if you're selling 404 pages.
It could be. I guess you could do a custom 404 business.
Bad. XML, RSS functionality and creation.
Yeah, XML. I'm sure everybody knows XML sitemaps. Google.
No, don't be sure of that.
Okay. XML sitemap is basically a way to tell the search engines, here are the pages that are on my site.
And it allows them to index all of the pages within the site.
Yep. It gives them a list. It's like a sitemap for a search engine.
Right.
So this is a great way to give them that list. If you have a huge e-commerce site, going through and trying to do that manually, you're going to run through a lot of people trying to figure that out. XML functionality, a lot of content management systems will create these for you. So making sure they can do that, making sure it's using the correct URL, RSS, same type of thing, making sure if you're doing press releases, it's getting them out there. Great thing to have. Last on the list, image and alt tag handling. Not a huge deal a lot of times, but we talked about
it can be for image searches.
It can be for image searches.
Right.
I think we have a slide on that.
Yep.
Excellent.
Oh, am I supposed to click now? No.
Oh man,
we're not segueing. Okay.
We tried to segue.
We do have some more information on that, but image and alt tag handling. Basically, you want to be able to make sure that you can insert alt tags or identify images within the content management system and label them in some way.
Yeah, it's just another optimization technique for Google Images, for Bing, for actually showing up in search results as well.
Okay, so number 4, relying too heavily on design and ignoring the optimization principles. So here's a common problem. Designers dictating the design of a website. The reason it's a problem is because they typically care about the aesthetics and not about the marketing aspects. I'm certainly not making a blanket statement, so don't send me hate mail, but I have experienced this over my 15-year career in this. And it's problematic because once the design is set and you start into production, it's oftentimes too late to go back, or you've invested heavily already.
That's a great point, yeah. It's a lot of times you hear that this site is going to be great because, okay, wonderful. It's going to be great because of this feature you're adding, but if nobody finds it, if nobody sees this feature, who cares?
Right.
If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, same kind of idea. Another thing with this, too, relying too heavily on design. If you're going into this expecting users to start using your site because of design features, because of how it looks, that's going to be really difficult to do. If no one's finding it, how do you get a site that no one finds to go viral?
Well, and I think some of the other more fundamental issues could be around navigation in particular, because we know that the search engines are going to index the homepage, for instance, and they're going to follow the links on the site. But if you've got a non-search friendly navigation structure, it's going to be really hard for a search engine to spider all of the pages.
Yeah, if you're using Flash for your navigation, or if you're using Ajax to dynamically create it, things like that can cause a lot of issues.
Okay, so here's the segue into Flash.
That actually did segue nice. I like that.
So there's a lot of talk about Flash. Here's an example of a site that uses Flash for navigation, and here's what the search engine sees. They've got all of their navigation at the bottom incorporated into the Flash design, but here's what the search engine sees.
Yeah,
nothing.
If you do this is what Google sees, their text-only version. this is exactly what they see, a huge red screen with nothing on it.
But that's how a spider is going to behave, Google or otherwise.
Yep.
Now, it is true that you can optimize for Flash, but it's still not a real effective way of getting positions in search.
No, it's kind of the Band-Aid approach.
Because you've already done it, you've already made the mistake.
You've already made the mistake, so let's put the Band-Aid on it and hope it works.
Now, we like Flash, and we incorporate Flash into the design of our site and our client sites, sites that we design. But they're embedded Flash elements. The whole site itself is not Flash. So there is plenty of content and links and navigation to follow.
And that's the key right there. Flash can be great, but it needs to be incorporated as part of the site, not as the whole site.
Correct. Number 5, in-house teams lack the time and training to stay current in the industry. Now, some people are going to think this is a pitch for outsourcing. That's not really what we're talking about, because we work with lots of internal teams at clients, on behalf of clients. But one of the struggles they face is that they're typically 1 or 2 person or at least small teams. And algorithms, here's a perfect slide. Google changes its algorithm 350 to 400 times a year, and I think that's rising.
That's rising.
Yeah.
I mean, with the recent changes where with the Chrome extension where you can actually dislike a page and essentially tell Google, I don't want this to show up in my results, it's going to be more than that for each person every year. It's going to update more often than that.
So essentially, it makes it really difficult. I know we have 45 or so people here at Oneupweb who live and breathe this daily. One of the things that we do here every morning is every person in the company is required to spend a certain amount of time reading before they start their day. So, Dave, every morning you come in, you're required to have reading time to catch up on what's going on in the industry as it relates to your position.
Yep.
That's one of the things that we do. We also have ongoing internal training. We participate in events. There's a lot that we do every day just to keep up on the industry. And sometimes it feels like it's nearly impossible.
It would be, and especially when you consider the fact that, you said a lot of times it's a small team that a company has. SEO is probably not their only job.
That may be true.
It's a full-time job keeping up on what's going on. And if they can't do that, if they don't have the time to do that, that could be an issue.
Well, and in addition to that, it isn't all about Google.
It's not, which I'm actually kind of happy to say.
Well, our feeling on search is that the more the better, because it's better for our clients' businesses not to have one that controls it all. However, Google does pretty much control the audience or the user base, yet Yahoo and Microsoft and Bing in particular are taking more of Google's market share slowly over time. But you can't just optimize for Google. You have to incorporate good optimization techniques that apply across all engines.
Definitely. If you rely on Google, you live and die by it, that's what's going to happen. If something changes and you're not prepared for it, there goes everything. That
can be a risk for sure. Number 6, ignoring the fact that social media impacts natural search. Now, I've been banging this drum for 2 years. And finally, the industry is starting to catch up. But definitely, social media does have a big impact on SEO and vice versa.
Yeah, it totally does. One thing to consider with this, I always consider this a double-edged sword. Because, yep, it influences it. And as a result, people tend to gravitate toward this really heavily or not at all. If they rely completely on this, okay, well, I'm doing all this social, so my SEO is great. That's not going to work. It's a part of it. It's something you have to incorporate into your overall strategy.
But I think some people, with social media coming hot on the scene and more marketers embracing social media as a way to market now, I think that they view them a lot of times as separate channels, as you were saying. But if you really look at an integrated effort, now you have the ability to leverage all of your social channels along with the search engines themselves. So you've got Google, Bing, Ask, to some degree, Yahoo, and then you've got all of your social channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, on down the line. And so here's some example, of if you do a search for the Oneupweb name, you can see in Bing results that we have social media integrated into the search results for ourselves. Now, we've paid attention to it too. And we want, if someone does a search for Oneupweb, we want our social channels to appear because that may be the expectation these days.
Well, I think it is. I don't think anybody goes into this expecting to just find a site anymore.
Right. And here's an example, too, with Google integrating our social media into Google results.
Yeah, and, even outside of that, I think that's a great tool to have right there, the real-time results, because who doesn't look at that? It's really hard to ignore that when you see that in a result.
Yeah, so it could be our Twitter feed. It could be a press release that's gone up lately. It could be our latest blog post.
Yeah, it could be any of those. And two, talking about, like you said, with Google and Bing both saying we incorporate that into it, and that whole debate recently with Google saying Bing is stealing our results because, do you remember that whole issue of they put up the false results?
No.
Oh, and Bing started returning them. Well, that's great, and Google was up in arms saying Bing is stealing our results. In the actual Internet Explorer interface, when you sign up for it, when you download it, it asks you, we're going to look at everything you do, essentially. Do you want us to do this and alter your results based on it?
Yeah.
The default is yes. So, unless you say no, the time you spend on these different profiles, on Facebook, on Twitter, it's going to influence how you see results.
Right. So not necessarily what you see is what other people see.
Right.
Yeah. Scary. Number 7, trusting SEO to the creative agency. I'm going to get hate mail for sure.
Yep.
Well, this kind of goes back to one of the earlier slides where we talked about. It's kind of a mix, actually. The important element is making sure that you have the right expertise and the right level of expertise to help you with SEO. A creative agency that you may have enlisted to help you with traditional marketing, like they're creating your television spots or your radio spots or your print ads, may say they do SEO, but our experience indicates that in most cases that's not true. So it's really important to, if you're going to use a creative agency, to see some examples of their work or really challenge them as to the level of sophistication that they have internally to do SEO.
Yeah, and it's not their sweet spot. I mean, it comes down to it. We've had a number of cases where we've worked in situations where someone has said, we'll talk to our SEO guy. It's a single person within the agency doing this.
Alternatively, there are definitely agencies that do design that offer SEO. Our warning here really is to make sure that you feel comfortable with the level of sophistication, because title and meta tags isn't going to cut it.
No, not even close.
So here's an example. Michelangelo. It's basically, if you build it, they don't necessarily come.
Not anymore.
So that puts us into some Q&A. These are questions, actually, that some that we've received in advance. We'll run through these real quickly, and then we'll get to live questions. First one. If our fiscal follows the calendar year, is SEO season over now that we're nearing the end of the first quarter?
No.
There's no such thing as an SEO season.
No, there's not.
There may be times of year that are more important to you, particularly if you're a retailer, but that doesn't mean you increase your efforts in SEO or decrease them according to the time of year. SEO is an ongoing process.
It is, and I don't know if this is related to years ago where SEO was a long-term process. You put it up, you waited 4 or 5 months for the engines to go through and pick everything up. Real-time search makes this a lot quicker. You're not waiting for months anymore. You're waiting for maybe days to start seeing results after things go up. So it's really, there is no out of season.
Okay. Does SEO have a future in the internet? Hey, that looks just like you.
It does.
Does it have a future in the internet marketing industry? I would hate to think that we're dinosaurs. However, we don't live and die by SEO. But what I will say is, I started this company in 1996, and it was a matter of title and meta tags changing the world. It's evolved a lot over time, and my response is yes, I believe that SEO will still be around, but it probably won't look the same tomorrow as it does today.
And it doesn't look the same today as it did yesterday. It's never going to look the same. It's always going to evolve, and honestly, I believe it's always going to be there in some form or another.
Well, particularly if you have Google changing its algorithm 300 to 400
or
times
500 times, twice a day based on your habits.
Yeah. After seeing what happened with JCPenney, what white gray hat link building tips do you have, or do you advocate besides press releases and blogging? Let's kind of back up. Some people may not have heard about what happened with JCPenney. Their search marketing company uses a tactic basically that incorporates all of their clients' links, websites, into a link farm. So this search company, let's say they have 100 clients, and what they do is they link all of these clients between one another, and Google viewed it as a link farm.
They actually, in addition to that, they actually go out and create sites, just random sites that they create for keywords, and they link them to the clients as well.
So it's definitely spammy.
Oh, yeah.
We would consider it black hat. Are there other link building tips that you advocate, though, besides press releases and blogging, Dave?
Oh, one thing, and this is going to sound really, contrite, but make your site useful. I mean, if you make a great site with good content that people like to read, that they like to see, people are going to link to it by default. There is no great silver bullet here that's going to make everything wonderful for linking. It really depends on your industry, on your site, and what you're doing. So making it useful for your users is the biggest thing.
Well, and one of the things that frustrates me, I guess, is we'll have prospects calling us, or we'll deal with situations, or current clients even, that talk a lot about link building and its importance. And people, if they don't understand how link building affects SEO or your positions in search, they think that it is the silver bullet. And they think that all you need are hundreds of links incoming to your site, and the site's going to rank highly as a result of it.
Work for JCPenney.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I don't think it did, actually. JCPenney might have had a few 100,000 pages and content on their site that helped them rank as well.
They had so many other things going for them. This was just, It's never going to be a silver bullet. It's not going to be, okay, I've got 300 links, I'm going to position in the top 5 now. It's always going to be based on your industry. It's going to be based on user behavior. There are so many other elements that go into this. Saying that building links is the silver bullet, if that's the approach you take, you know what? You're not going to see the results you want. Well,
and it's one factor. We talked about the 350 to 400 algorithm changes from Google. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of criteria that a Google search will look at to determine whether or not a site should be ranking in search results. So when I talk to clients about the importance of linking, I'm more concerned with not just gathering up inbound links to a site, but finding good sources of quality traffic. If that's your primary consideration, I want my clients' links to appear on sites that are not only going to help it from a link building standpoint, but primarily they're relevant and they're going to drive good traffic through that link itself. I think if you approach link building that way, it's going to be much more beneficial and certainly have long-term benefits versus short-term gains.
Well, yeah, and like you said, too, Google now incorporates time spent on the site in their algorithm. So if you're sending people from a great quality source, they're spending time on the site, they're looking through pages, it's going to help your position.
Well, and we'll get around to answering this question in just a second, but I also want to say one more thing. I think one of the most often ignored tactics with link building is ignoring your internal linking.
Yes, it is.
So by that, what we're talking about is really coming up with a good structure that leverages all of the pages in your site and the content that you have on your own site not multiple sites. Don't go creating multiple sites. You can have one site and really help your link value go up because you've linked them appropriately, the pages themselves.
Well, that's great for users and for search engines.
Right.
It helps them go through the site, and it helps the engines understand what the site is about. It's really a win-win.
Yeah. So other than press releases and blogging, really finding relevant sites that would lead or direct a potential prospect or purchaser to your site, and the link juice that you get from that then will be of value.
Yeah, the one thing I would caution against, anytime you see something that says, we'll get you 500 PR3 plus links for $14.95, whatever it is, whatever they're charging for it, that should be a flag right there. If they're saying, I'm getting you X number for this price, PR3 plus, it might be a situation where for your industry, you're not going to have that many sites. So where are they pulling these links from?
Could be a link farm.
It probably is.
Is there a way to influence the Google image SERP? SERP stands for Search Engine Result Page.
Yes, there is. Back to about 12 slides ago when we talked about CMS, image and alt tag handling. That's one definite way to do this, tagging your images appropriately, making sure the engines can see this is what the image is about.
Well, and I think one of the important factors is the naming of the file. So in this case, you can see the SEO image there in the center. If it's titled SEO.jpg, the chances are it's going to show up higher in a Google image search. So naming of the file itself is really critical.
Yep, naming of the file, the alt text used, as well as how relevant the page is for it. You're creating all these things together to create a page around that. So what you don't want to do, Lisa said, is have 1456.jpg on a page and expect that to position, with no alt tag.
Right. Can SEM or PPC help influence my organic rankings, and how?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Well, you're allowed.
All right. Now how? All right. We've talked about it a couple times already, that Google, Bing both look at how people are clicking through to your site, the time they're spending on your site.
The behavior of the user.
User behavior. So if you're running a PPC campaign that has good landing pages, that's driving people into your site and through multiple pages of your site, for that user at least, it's definitely going to help with how your site positions in their personalized results.
Yeah. What's the difference between online reputation management and SEO? It seems obvious to me, so I'm hoping that I'm understanding the question correctly. But online reputation management is really controlling your reputation or responding to comments about your reputation, reviews, and monitoring those things. SEO can certainly impact those reputation issues if you have them, but the difference between the two is that SEO is making sure that your site appears for related searches, product-related searches or service-related searches, and particularly long tail, versus real broad or general keywords.
Yeah, it's pretty much my take on that too. I don't know what else that could be.
When dealing with niche keywords and SEO, what's the best way to achieve brand growth, and do you have examples of this working?
That's a couple of questions.
Yeah, I think we determined it's 3 or 4
keywords. Yeah, at least. Achieving brand growth. I mean, really, what are you looking for? I mean, we can talk about ThinkGeek, for example. Unicorn meat. I don't know
okay, let me just back up and explain a little bit.
We want to.
ThinkGeek is a client of Oneupweb. We're not doing SEO for them, but let's just use them as an example. If they do have a product called Unicorn Meat.
Canned unicorn meat.
Right, was Spam with a different label, I'm guessing?
Pretty much Spam with sprinkles.
Okay. Oh, yum.
Crunchy sprinkles.
Okay. Have you tried it?
Yes.
Okay. So if, for instance, you're a Think Geek and you're selling unicorn meat, typically you wouldn't imagine that people are doing searches for unicorn meat. So how do you market that product through search?
Well, what's it related to? We talked about it's essentially spam with sprinkles. So
it could be canned meat. It could be
meat.
Spam itself. But I think the message is if you're in a particular niche that may not have keywords that are easily optimized, you're going to want to optimize the site for keywords that are likely to be used for search related to it.
Yep, the related industry. That's really what you're looking for. Or if you're new to the market and you're looking to build that brand awareness, find those other areas that are related that people are searching for. So,
and the message too is that you have to have content on the site that is relevant as well. So if you want to optimize for or drive traffic to the Think Geek site for unicorn meat, and you're going to optimize the site for terms like spam or like canned meat or other things you could think of,
potted meat,
then you need to make sure that you have content on the site that relates to those keywords. You've got to be using those particular keywords in the content.
Yeah, and I mean, an example of this working, Think Geek had the benefit of a whole viral campaign blowing up around the spam or the unicorn meat. So that one worked really well. A little bit different case, but this can work for a lot of different companies in building brand. We're talking about big brands versus little brands building their presence online. Like you said, ASIC coming up for running shoes, high arch running shoes. Okay, they probably didn't have a great name out there a few years ago. They probably sold a lot more online now because of that. So it's one example of this working to their advantage.
So what's your point? How do I convince my management team to invest more funds in SEO? Well,
results.
Yeah, somebody asked earlier today, what would I, if you came to me and you wanted me to invest in SEO, it probably wouldn't be a hard sell, but if I weren't doing it, if I weren't doing it, I'd ask the typical questions that you would expect. I mean, how do we know that we're not doing well already? What's the investment going to be? How long is it going to take? What resources are we going to need? I think the best thing to do is come armed with the answers to those questions. And, what do we expect the results are going to be?
What's my ROI?
Correct. At the end of the day, that's always going to be the question. We also have, I think we did a webinar a few months ago on, selling SEO internally.
Selling
to the C-level suite, yeah. Yep. There are some helpful tips in that, and that's available at the Digital Roadshow site. But there are lots of ways to sell it. At the end of the day, any CEO or director of marketing is going to get it down to brass tacks, and you have to be able to make your case. What's the best way to determine the appropriate keywords to optimize for?
That's a loaded question right there.
Well, there are lots of different ways to go about it.
Yeah.
There are lots of tools out there. But at the very least, starting with a seed list. Look at the content on your site. Look at the pages throughout the entire site and pull a keyword list, a seed list that you can expand upon.
Yeah, if you're also look at what's converting for you.
Server logs.
Yep, look at server logs. Find out how people are getting there. Find out what they're converting on, what terms they're converting on, and look for the long tail terms related to that.
So, for instance, our debate on this earlier when we were discussing this is, if you look at the server logs, the people coming in on those keywords are already finding the site for those keywords. The point is, though, you take those keywords that they're finding the site for and expand on them. Make them 3- and 4-word long-tail keyword phrases. Form them in a question.
Yep.
How do I, or what can you do? Or, so coming up with various ways to perform a search with those key phrases.
Yeah, if we go back to running shoes.
Do we have to?
It was already on there.
Okay.
We're talking about running shoes. Okay, if people are finding you for running shoes, what other terms are there? You saw high arch running shoes, flat foot running shoes. they're
what kind of running shoe is best for a flat foot?
Yeah, things like that, high arch, whatever.
How important are good backlinks and how do you obtain them? Well, we kind of talked about this.
Yeah, we kind of got into that one already
a little bit earlier. The message, though, is to just acquire good links. Don't get caught up in something that sounds skeptical. It probably is not a good route to take. They're important. Links are important, but my argument is they're no more important than any other factor on your website if you're incorporating good SEO. Your title tags are important. Links, incoming links are important. Internal links are important. Content on the page, linking within the content on the page. All of these are elements that are just as important as good incoming links.
Well, yeah, and if you're spending all your time doing this and ignoring the other things, it's not going to matter. I mean, if you don't have the content, if you don't have the site structure, if someone comes to the site can't find what they're looking for, what good does that do us? Even if you do position for some reason.
And there you have it. So I think we're going to go into some live questions. If you give us just a second here.
The first question that have come in through the session, and there's a couple that relate to this, but the first is a WordPress site okay for SEO? And then a couple of other folks asked, related, what about CMS systems like Joomla and Expressions and some of the other well-known content management systems available?
By the way, that's Tim, our Director of Operations, whose voice you hear bouncing off of the wall.
Just in case.
WordPress is friendly.
Yeah.
In fact, the Oneupweb website is built on WordPress, and so have the previous two versions been. So,
yeah, WordPress is a very search engine friendly management system.
What about Joomla?
Joomla is as well. In both cases, it usually involves going through and finding some plugins or other things or making some changes to the default structure of it.
What about Drupal?
So keep throwing them out there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Drupal you can as well. Drupal is actually what a lot of government sites use. They actually have done a really good job making this more search engine friendly because all of them are using them. Yeah.
What about Market Live? No. What about
next?
What about Volusion? No. What about Zencart? Better.
It's better if we're going with open source. If you haven't used Magento, I highly recommend it. It's a great content management system.
That's the content management system we have adopted and we're using for all of our development for client sites because SEO is so important to us.
Yeah, and it's very easy to use.
Okay, next.
Next question. I thought Twitter was an unfollow or no follow and did not help your ranking like Wikipedia. Has this recently changed?
They are still no follow. But again, as we were talking about other elements, other things that are incorporated into the algorithm, time spent on site, people coming to the site, it doesn't necessarily have to be a link that the engines are following for them to see that people are coming there, that you're spending time on the site. So having a no-follow link isn't necessarily a bad thing anymore. And Lisa, you had talked about, too, getting people to the site and converting them.
Well, if you've got a Twitter profile, it's going to show up in search.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be showing your tweets, but it's definitely going to show your profile page.
Yes, I mean, a direct backlink correlation, you might not get it from the Twitter, but you are getting benefits from potentially showing up in search as well as helping to influence users' results based on their behavior.
Correct.
What are the three things you would say are most important for a company to do when optimizing their site?
Did
I stumble on that?
Well, which elements? Like, is a title tag more important than a meta tag, or?
Three key things to do.
Well, let's assume they're not going through a redesign, first of all, and that this is a website that's live and it needs optimization.
Okay.
The first three things.
First things come to mind, title tags, because they do still make a difference. They are what show up in search results. It's the first interaction you have with your potential clients, getting them to click through. Next thing, what's on the page they're landing on? What's the content like? You want to make sure.
Making it relevant, making it compelling, making it having calls.
Having calls to action. And definitely, what's the user experience?
Okay, number 3.
No, that is number 3. User experience overall. What are you doing with them online once they get there? Are they converting? Are they spending time on the site? Or are they bouncing right away? So we were talking about design issues and making mistakes. Yep, you can do it, but also make sure that you're keeping people on your site once you get them there.
Okay.
Do you see any difference in doing SEO for a mobile device versus a website? In other words, should our mobile-ready site include different types of SEO versus what PC users are going to get when they search?
No. I mean, why would you make it different?
Well, hopefully you've got a website that serves both PC and mobile users, but if you have a separate user experience for a mobile device, or you're redirecting, or you have a separate site for a mobile device, it's still going to be the same basic optimization principle.
Yes, principles are exactly the same. You don't want to start trying to change that based on device or anything like that.
Yeah, good SEO is just good SEO.
Besides using social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., and having a presence on those sites, is there anything else to do to get these sites to show on search engine results?
Well, the actual, if you have a profile set up in these, they will show up in search results. But the problem is that the content that lives in those sites themselves is blocked off.
It is. One thing you want to make sure you're doing is getting that interaction again. I know we're talking about that quite a bit, but we have seen not with actual clients, but in cases they've talked about where social profiles are showing up and then actually dropping out of the results because people can't find what they're looking for. They aren't spending time on it. They have kind of a default interaction with the client.
So, in essence, the page or that profile is getting demoted because people are bouncing off of it.
Yep.
So it's important in every instance. You've got to understand how the search engines have changed recently to understand why the user experience is even more important. The user experience is part of SEO because your page will lose positions in search if people are not staying on the site. If they're bouncing off really quickly, it's going to essentially demote the page in search results for a particular key phrase.
Right. They want to provide what's most relevant. If people are bouncing, they assume it's not relevant.
Correct.
If you buy an ad on an industry site and link back to your site, is that helpful for SEO?
Sometimes.
Once in a while.
A lot of those sites have not been banned by Google, but have been identified by Google, and I'm assuming Bing, as sites that sell links. And so if they've been identified as one of those portal sites, they will discount the link juice. I hate that word, but that the value of that link as an incoming link to the site. So there's not a lot of value in terms of just boosting link popularity.
I know it's something we've seen even with ours. We've bought links on industry-related, done advertising, things like that. Those used to show up as backlinks. They don't anymore.
Right, and for instance, we used to advertise on ClickZ, and so we had a listing, and that's been a couple years ago, but we had a listing on the ClickZ website, and we didn't do it for link popularity, but it was there because we were a sponsor of a section. And Google identified ClickZ as a site that essentially is selling links, and
it doesn't show up as a backlink anymore.
Yeah. So I wouldn't use that as a strategy to boost link popularity.
No.
What can you do to account for the differing keyword densities required by the different engines?
There's not.
Yeah.
It goes back to good SEO principles. Keyword density is one factor that you have to pay attention to, but there is a sweet spot.
There is
a balance between all of the engines that you just need to hit, and so that's good SEO fundamental.
Right, and it's not necessarily just that keyword; it's creating that overall relevancy for the topic.
It's the copy on the rest of the page.
Yeah.
if I've addressed things like title tags, alt tags, and having keyword-rich content on my site, what is next for SEO?
Internal linking. Check your internal linking. Find out how the site is going together. Look to see, okay, I have these great pages. How am I linking to it? Am I helping the engines to find that these pages are related to this topic throughout the site? Or am I kind of creating silos for each individual page?
Yep. Well, we're near the end of our time together, so we're going to wrap this up. Again, I appreciate you spending time with us today. SEO is something that there are a lot of webinars available on. There's a lot of educational materials out there. The industry is changing so quickly, and what the engines are doing, that it's really hard these days to be proactive and anticipate what those changes are going to be. And so in a lot of instances, you have to be reactive. If you're looking for an agency and you want one that is proactive and can foresee what some of those changes are that are coming, give us a call. I'm Lisa Weir, the CEO of Oneupweb, and with me today I've had Dave Castle. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next month. Wait a minute, I think we have a next month. Oh, I want to remind everyone again, too, that today's session was recorded, and that will be available in a couple of days for download on oneupweb.com in our library, the digital roadshow.oneupweb.com, and then you can also sign up for our newsletter, The Merge. And I think that's it. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much, Lisa.